My name is Eric Van Horn. I bought my first franchise in my 20s, and since then, I've owned 6 brands with 25 stores in 8 states. I've also helped 1,000 people find the right franchise for them. People like us who are not cut out for the 9 to 5 and like to work smarter, not harder. How do we find the right franchise, buy it, grow it, sell it, and how do we do it in a way to own the business without it owning us? Those are the questions, and I'm on a mission to give you the answers. Welcome to Franchise Secrets. All right, welcome to the Franchise Secrets podcast with your host, Eric Van Horn, and today's guest is Brian Scudamore. I've been trying to get Brian on for, I think, at least a year. He's a founder of O2E brands, which includes 1-800-GOT-JUNK, Wow One Day Painting, and Shack Shine, all in the home services base. And I wanted to dive into a number of things with him, including his new book. And he's known for just being innovative, having brands that are really focused on the customer, and having one of the best places to work. And so I want to talk to him about how that is with franchisees, that franchisee-franchisor relationship. But Brian, thanks for coming to the show. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Eric. Happy to be here.
So let's get started in the beginning. Just take us back to the beginning of 1-800-GOT-JUNK, or whatever is the beginning for you and your story. Because for anybody that might be living under a rock and does not know the story, why don't you lay the foundation for everyone?
Well, you're too kind. I'm not sure everybody knows what 1-800-GOT-JUNK, but I'm sure a lot do. We work hard at getting the name out there. So I started 1-800-GOT-JUNK almost 30 years ago, actually a little over 30 years ago. I was in a McDonald's drive-through of all places. The inspiration hit me. I saw this beat up old pickup truck in front of me, plywood side panels built up on the box. Truck was filled with junk. I was at a point in my life where I was one course short of graduation from high school, yet all my friends had planned on going to college. So I had FOMO, didn't want to miss out, and decided to join them, but I had to talk my way into college. I talked my way in. I needed the money now to pay for it. Back to that truck in the McDonald's drive-thru, I thought, why not start my own business? I started hauling junk and paid for college. But ironically, what funded that college education inspired me to drop out. 3 years into my degree, I was learning so much more about business by running a business, more so than studying in school. And I made the bold decision to drop out. And I say bold decision because my father, who's a liver transplant surgeon, was not too happy when he found out that his oldest son was quitting school to become a full-time junk man. And I certainly had to sit down and present the good news and why I was making the decision. And while he didn't support my decision at the time, about 10 years later, he certainly came on side.
I was similar when I grew up in this small town in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and I was working for my dad. He had a fencing company. So I was like digging post holes and building fence, and it was horrible. I mean, that was like physical work. And it was my senior year. I'm like, I don't really want to be doing this the rest of my life. That's when I decided to go to college, because that had great skiing, great mountain biking, great rock climbing, and all of that stuff. But you coming up with a father who's a surgeon, was there any pressure? You'd never really thought about college before?
Oh man, you know what? There was pressure nonstop. I mean, my dad's a brilliant man and he's still practicing liver transplants, but he was one of these dads who, when I'd get money for Christmas, you'd get a check from an aunt, and I'd write a thank you letter saying, thank you very much. I'm saving this for college. Now, I knew that really I wasn't saving it for college, but I wanted my dad to hear that I was, because that was important to him. But as an entrepreneur, I think it's very different than being a doctor. When you're a doctor, yeah, you want to go to college. You don't want to have a patient who questions your credentials. But as an entrepreneur, our credentials come from the streets.
Yeah.
We learn by doing. And school just wasn't the best choice for me. I'm also very ADD. I'm always coming up with new ideas and noticing squirrels fly by. And it's a tough thing being ADD, but sitting in class is hard. And the structure of class didn't work for me. I love to learn. It just wasn't the right place for me.
A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that, right? They're always on to the next thing, the biggest thing, and the squirrels. Something's happening over here. And I've heard it said, like a lot of entrepreneurs are probably ADD in reality.
Oh, very much so. I'm a part of the entrepreneur organization, EO, and it's the largest worldwide entrepreneur group. And I think just about everyone I've ever met through that group has a pretty high level of ADD. It's part of the juice that drives us. I think ADD can be a gift because we always see the world differently and we see so many things at once. It's learning to rally or rein in that focus and say, hey, here's one idea, junk removal. I'm going to stick with it for 22 years before I add my next business, which we ended up doing.
That's a long time. So McDonald's drive-through, college dropout. What give us some background into that? Like, what happened between, going through the McDonald's drive-through and then actually dropping out of school?
Yeah. So, I dropped out of school. I started building this business. And again, my father didn't necessarily like my choices, but I said, I'm going to add trucks. I'm going to grow a business. I'm going to prove to myself and my dad that was important to me that I could build a successful business. So the year I dropped out, I went from 1 truck to 3 trucks. I then went to 4 the next year, 5 the following year. So when I had 5 trucks, I was doing $500,000 in revenue. The business was growing and thriving. I was making money and having fun. But I approached my first big hurdle as an entrepreneur, and that was realizing I wasn't having fun with the people I was working with. So I made
Hmm.
another tough decision, and I decided to sit down my group, my team. I had 9 bad apples, one spoils the whole bunch. I had 11 employees. I pulled them all into a
Wow.
room and said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I've let you down. I haven't found the right people, treated you right, given you the love and support that you've needed to be successful. And I'm choosing to part ways, and I've got to start again.
So
And it taught, go ahead.
at that time, did you know that you were really taking ownership on the inside of your mindset and who you are? What did you see it as your fault? Or is that just a looking back, you see that?
Well, I mean, it was a long time ago. I want to think that I was introspective enough
Hmm.
to truly get it at the time. And I think I did. I realized that you've got to build a business through people, finding
Hmm.
the right people and treating them right. I didn't find the right people, and I certainly wasn't treating them right. I wasn't spending time getting to know them and their story and what drove and motivated them and how this could be more than a job for the right people. So I started to change my mindset
Hmm.
and grow up a bit over time and realize in the end, yes, 100% it was my mistake. I didn't hire the right people. And they were all nice enough people, but they weren't the motivated, happy, optimistic people that I was looking for to help me build my little company.
So fired them, and then you had to hire. What was that process? Because a lot of entrepreneurs out there, a lot of franchisees, they realize they have a bad apple, usually too
Mm-hmm.
late, and
Mm-hmm.
they are behind the 8 ball. They've spent money, and now they realize how much it costs to hire and train somebody to get them up where they are. So too many of them hold on too long. But once they
Mm-hmm.
do make that decision to fire them, I get the calls. How do I hire Eric? How do I hire somebody really good? What did you do when you found yourself in that place?
I came up with a methodology where I said, hiring is so complicated. How do I as an ADD entrepreneur help my team simplify it? Instead of asking all these hypothetical questions and hoping that people are perfectly honest, I said, why don't I take a different approach? I asked myself, how do we find friends? We don't go with a big checklist and go, so Eric, what kind of beer do you drink? Do you like NASCAR? I mean, it's just not the way it works. You get to know someone and you either connect and trust each other or you don't, and you build a relationship over time. With hiring, we ask these skills-based questions and hypothetical sort of what would you do in this situation? And I don't think it tells us anything except how someone can speak and think on their feet. So I said, change it to how do I find friends? Let me start to meet with someone and ask myself one question. I call it the beer and barbecue test. Would I sit down and have a beer with this person? Do I like them? Do I find them interesting and interested? Do they have a passion in life, something that's shared that we have in common that we would enjoy working together? I then do the barbecue test component, which is how would they fit at a company barbecue? How would they fit in the company of a bunch of our employees all having a barbecue together, lots of diversity, unique personalities? Do they fit? Do they get along? And do we have something that we're driving towards together? So as a company, we're now, $500 million in revenue or more. We have about 550 people in
Hmm.
our 2 head offices, and we still use that method of hiring. Beer and barbecue test, totally simplifying an age-old problem of recruiting.
Do you know any other companies that you learned from that were doing something similar, that you took little bits from different people? Or is it just something that you just realize, like, I don't enjoy being around these employees, but I do enjoy being around my friends. I'm just going to
Mhm.
do the friends, the beer, and the barbecue test.
Yeah, I think it's something that we developed internally that just became a simple answer to a very difficult problem of recruiting. One of the companies I've seen do it very well, Tony Hsieh, Zappos,
Mm-hmm.
down in Vegas. I went to go visit them a couple of times and spend some time with Tony. And, they take it to a whole new level. Tony will
Yeah.
sit down and have shooters, a couple of shooters in an interview to see how relaxed people are and how much fun they are. But whatever it is for you, how do you find friends? Keep it simple. We recruit the wrong person and we make a compromise because we need a person in that seat. Yet whoever compromises with friends, you just don't do that.
Yeah.
So we're very slow to hire, quick to fire. Let's take our time up front finding the right people. And if we feel we've made a mistake and we've given someone an honest bunch of chances and it doesn't work out, then we make a change.
So put this into context for everybody listening, because mutual friend Cameron Harold was bragging about your company on how you got the best place to work or one of the best places to work. So do a little bragging so the audience knows this isn't just somebody talking theory.
Yeah, we've won all sorts of awards. And Cameron Harold, who was our COO years ago and still an awesome friend of mine, he was with us from 100, from 2 million to 106 million in revenue. And he was a part of helping to make our company win one of the first best companies to work for in Canada and in British Columbia. If I was to brag, I'd say we're very good at finding the right people. We are slow to hire. We're careful in bringing people on board to join the O2E Brands family. And I know you mentioned the O2E Brands. What that actually stands for is ordinary to exceptional. We're taking ordinary people and helping them become exceptional leaders, exceptional entrepreneurs. And it's a mission we're on. And so I think the reason why we win awards based on culture is we hire awesome people. They're fun, they're happy, they're glass half full people, and they've got a shared passion with us to build amazing, exceptional businesses.
With the hiring, then I want to dive into some of the franchisees because you led me into that. When did you start hiring really smart people? And did you ever hire anybody that is smarter than you or smarter than you in your skill set? Because it's easy for me to hire people that are for my weak areas, and I'll hire and someone really good and they cover my weak areas. But hiring somebody that is smarter, better than me in my strengths is something that I still struggle with a little bit. Have you experienced that yourself?
Of course, yeah. I think the entrepreneurial superpower, if you really want to build an amazing business, is hire smarter people. Entrepreneurs have big egos. We all do. We all want to grow and build something special. But I think something I certainly struggled with in the earlier days is hiring smarter people because I thought I was so smart. But you know what? I realize, like you mentioned, we all have our weaknesses and there's some pretty big gaps in what I do. So what I did is I brought on a guy named Eric Church about 8 years ago. And I hope the guy's around forever. He's an amazing friend and an amazing president and COO of our business. He and Cameron were actually fraternity brothers years ago. And what Eric did is I realized by bringing someone so much smarter into the group, so much better at hiring, at execution, at planning, at strategy. I mean, the guy's a genius. He loves to do the things that I'm really, really bad at. And there's a big list of things that I'm bad at. He's made my company much more exceptional. Now, Eric would also say, there's things that he's not great at that Brian balances him out on. And so it really is this two in the box leadership model that's really worked for us. But Eric is one of those guys who has no ego and challenge with bringing in smarter people than him. And it's a model that's worked for us. And I think that most entrepreneurs and most leaders in businesses are afraid of hiring smarter people, but it really is gold if you figure it out.
Do you have a typical traction or rocket fuel type environment there where you are the visionary and Eric is the integrator?
We absolutely do. So someone gave us that book after we had created what we called our two in the box model. And we realized, Eric and I looked at this. He read the whole book because he's an integrator. I skimmed the book because I'm a visionary. And we were like, this is us.
Yeah.
And it really is truly magic. When you can find, as an entrepreneur, when you can find your integrator and the two of you, two heads are better than one, it is rocket fuel. I think even as a franchise partner, I know that you said your audience is franchisors, franchisees. If I was a franchise partner and I was building and scaling a business, I'd still look and I'd go, am I the visionary? Am I the implementer? which one am I and what do I need as sort of the yin to my yang.
Well, let's talk about that because early on, I want to know how you grew. Like, where were you weak? Was it operations? Because it wasn't probably weak in vision, but was it operations? And then how does that relate to franchisees now? Some of the better franchisees in your system, are they really good operators? Or are they really good, more visionaries that hire the operators?
I think where I have been weakest, if I look back over 30 years, I love to systematize things. I love efficiency and not having to repeat mistakes and inefficient processes. But I was terrible at execution. I needed someone who could say, here's what Brian sees, here's the vision. Brian isn't going to get us there. We need someone like an Eric, my executor, my implementer, to step by step put the plans and the people and the teams and the progress in place to make it all happen. So I could come up with an idea. I could come up with a system. I just couldn't put it all together and put all the different pieces in place to make it happen.
How do you today help your top performing franchisees? Because I see in a lot of different franchise systems out there, they are really good at that middle group, that middle 60 to 80%. And it seems like they're always trying to either help the underperformers get better or help them sell and move out and help somebody take over that particular business. And yet I see a lot of the top 10 to top 20% of the franchisees on their own trying to improve themselves. And I know that you're a personal development guy. You're always wanting to improve with EO. And I mean, this is who you are. So I'm sure you have a soft spot in your heart for those that are always the top performer. So how do you, at your 3 different brands, help them stay and improve as top performers?
Well, first of all, we get the give the grain to your best horses, like find your most powerful, most ambitious franchise owners and help them more than anyone else. Yes, it's important to look at the middle layer and go, hey, who are the up and coming superstars? And then who are the wrong ones that you've got to help talk out, help out, give a push, a friendly push, whatever's needed, right? Not everybody succeeds in a franchise organization. The top franchise owners, I think what we do well with is 2 things. One, we have a head coach. We have an actual coaching department here where we provide coaching and direction to our franchise owners. And it's a pretty sophisticated level of coaching that we provide. So no matter what financial growth numbers people are at, they can make use of our coaching program. But the other thing is we help them help each other. So we're always on the lookout for, what is your problem? Oh, I know someone within the system who solved that. Let's connect you to and let's have some peer-to-peer support. The system, our whole franchise system for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, for Wow One Day Painting, for Shack Shine, these weren't created by me. These weren't all created by our entire teams. They were created by our franchise partners, and we've been really good at pulling people together to help them find the answers of the missing system that they need to really grow to the next level.
Tell me about these different brands right now. So anybody that doesn't know about these different brands, give a little bit on each brand, if you don't mind. And then also I'd like to know, like, who are the franchisees? Like, who are the franchisees that own some of these brands? A lot of my world is fitness and beauty and a lot of retail. I'm getting into more of the service-based brands because I really like them for a lot of different reasons, especially kind of where we're headed with the economy and different things. I also see a shift from a lot of these retail franchisees that have big leases signed. They're wanting to diversify into service-based businesses like what you have. So give us a little bit on each brand, please.
Yeah. And maybe I'll comment first on different types of franchises that are out there. They're really different recipes. You know, think of a recipe book. Do you want to cook French cuisine? Do you want to cook some Asian fusion? I mean, someone who can follow a recipe and do step by step the process, that's what it takes to be successful. And so we try and empower our franchise candidates to look at this and say, it's junk removal. Who cares? It's painting. It doesn't matter. We're not looking for people to pick up a brush and paint homes. We're looking for people to build a business empire. We're looking for people that come in and learn and understand the business, but can then grow and scale it. So 1-800-GOT-JUNK, the first baby, so to speak, it's hauling away junk. It's taking junk from people's homes when they renovate, move, spring clean, and off to be recycled or disposed of. Our top franchise owners in that, we've got Paul Guy in Toronto, who is our first franchise owner, and he's doing 16 million in revenue in Toronto. But he owns
16 million. I had to stop you there, Brian, because I hear a lot of people, they want to big build big businesses and
Yeah.
they think of a junk removal as not that big of a business, but
Yeah.
16 million is a big business.
It's a big number. And he owns many other franchises throughout our network. So I think he's closer to 60 in all
Wow.
his portfolio. Wow One Day Painting is the second in the family, the middle child. And it is a business where I had my home painted and I had three different people come in and give me quotes and estimates. And I wasn't impressed with the first two painters. They had cigarettes hanging out of their mouths. They, were lazy seeming. I was worried they were going to move into my house and be there for a couple of weeks. I found the third guy, said, I'll paint your home in a day. And I said, how's that even possible? He said, it's possible. It's what we do. Our company's called One Day Painting. I was so impressed with what he did. Floor to ceiling moldings, trim, done in a day. It was immaculate. And so I acquired the business and off we went as Wow One Day Painting. So we are wowing people by removing the disruption that happens in a
Mm-hmm.
home from painting. Why do it in a week if you can put the number of bodies into a home to get it done in a day without compromising quality and getting it done faster? So that's been an exciting business for us. We're over 50 franchise partners. The goal is to be the largest painting company on the planet. We'll absolutely get there. We did it with junk removal. And then if I look at Shack Shine, the baby in the family, Shack Shine is windows, gutters, power washing. We created a space where people understand detailing your car. This is detailing your home. So we've created the home detailing business, window washing, power washing, gutter cleaning. And then at Christmas time, we do Christmas lights. And so it's just been an amazing subscription based business where our franchise owners love the fact that unlike junk removal, where someone might use us once a year or once every couple of years, Shack Shine, they're using us 3, 4, 5 times a year on a regular basis for cleaning out gutters, for power washing their home and cleaning their windows. So it's been a fantastic business and looking for lots of awesome franchise partners there. Now, who are our partners, you had asked? We call it the 4 H's: happy, hungry, hardworking, and hands-on. Optimistic, growth-minded people that want to roll up their sleeves to understand the business before they build and scale an empire, and that they're hungry. They're not looking for this to be a passive investment. They're looking to get in and say, hey, I want this to be my main focus, and I'm going to build a great business here.
How do they go? Because I think that's a really good point. I was going to ask you if they are semi-absentee, because that's a buzzword around. I own semi-absentee businesses. None of them are
Mm-hmm.
semi-absentee as you want to think that they are when you first buy these franchises.
Yeah.
But as I get into the home services space, I'm with my franchise, I want them to be owner operator. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
this to be a passive investment for somebody because they
Mm-hmm.
need to be out there. Like you said, they need to be hustling. They need to be grinding. But how do
Mm-hmm.
you, did you ever try semi-absentee in any of these business and obviously probably failed if you did try it?
Yeah. So great question, Eric. We did try semi-absentee. And I say now, if someone wants an absentee ownership structure, go buy mutual funds, right? I mean, that's a passive investment for me. I don't need to touch my mutual funds. I can look at them every year and see how well they did or didn't do. Running a business, especially a home service
Mhm.
business, you have to be connected to your customers. Even if someone isn't picking up a power washing wand and cleaning homes, they need to know who the Shack Shine customer is, how their marketing programs are working, how their team's feeling. They got to be providing leadership and they're building a big, exciting business. Now, every one of our brands has over $100 million potential. And it's something where I go, okay, 1-800 got junk. We got there fairly quickly and
Mhm.
now we're almost a $500 million company. The other brands are no different, but we will only get there if we have focused, dedicated, committed entrepreneurs who are focused on that service and not being a passive investor.
So the franchisees need to be focused on the things that they are good at, and with the customer, I see their franchisees can do some of the heavy lifting for the franchisors can do some of the heavy lifting for the franchise partners. They can
Mm-hmm.
do it at scale where the partner has to just do it a one-off, like a call center or something
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
that. What kind of
Mm-hmm.
things do you do to help the franchise partners in things like that?
Mm-hmm. Well, years ago, when I was looking at franchising 1-800 Got Junk, I went to a bunch of franchise experts, people from head office of McDonald's and you name it. I went to these experts who said, Brian, this business can't be franchised. Someone's going to get out and buy a pickup truck and just be a competitor. Why would they join you? So I asked lots of questions about what was missing. And that led me to someone who's building a junk removal business doesn't want to be fielding all the calls, doing all the booking and dispatch. We built a call center. And that has been really the nuts and bolts behind keeping this machine growing so quickly. We have hundreds of sales center agents that are taking calls, doing booking and dispatch for our franchise owners. We also have an online booking engine, which does about a third of all our bookings. And so we've taken that off the plates of franchise partners so they can drive sales, build marketing, build teams, and grow an awesome business. It's the same in Shackshine. It's the same in Wow One Day Painting. Nobody wants to field all these calls for estimates. They want the leads, the jobs on their schedules, and that's what we help them do.
So what we're talking about is systems and processes, because you're a system guy, and it just it takes the load off of the franchise partner. I get people coming to me and they come to me to help them buy or look at different franchises to buy. And one of the first questions that I get is like, Eric, I want something really unique. I want something that nobody else can do. I want something like that, and I start talking to them, and you can have the best product, but if you don't have systems to back up that product, you have the best service, but if you don't have systems and processes to back that up, it's meaningless. So I love the systems and the processes. Anything that you would comment to somebody that says, well, gosh, I could just do this myself.
Yeah. So people looked at us, and in the early days when we were having trouble finding franchise owners for 1-800-GOT-JUNK, that was the big question. Why should I join you? I could just do this on my own. Yeah, you could. But the power together of building something much bigger and better together versus going at it alone became a real thing. So we got on Oprah. We ended up on the Oprah Winfrey Show, CNN, Wall Street Journal, you name it. A small one-off player doesn't make that happen. But when a big national brand starts to grow and makes those media hits happen, everybody benefits. So that's been amazing. I think the power in building a brand, we see customers that literally will use Wow One Day Painting in Chicago, and they'll move to San Francisco and say, oh, I didn't realize you guys were here. Awesome. You painted my home in Chicago. Why not paint my home in San Francisco? So again, that's a national brand. Yes, you can do things on your own, but a national brand can charge a premium. A national brand has a reputation and is known on a much bigger scale than just a mom and pop shop.
I was going to ask you about being first to market, second to market, being the biggest brand, because you're kind of 1-800-GOT-JUNK. That's the market leader, right? I mean,
yeah, by far.
By far. I mean, there's nobody else that's really coming close to that. It's like Massage Envy in the massage space. They dominate that space. I would not want to be really competing against them. But you're not first to market in these other ones. And I heard you earlier, the goal is to be number one. Is that the goal for all three brands, to be the market leader?
It is. I mean, we believe that generally the company that's the biggest is usually the best, right? You don't become the largest in a space without being great at a bunch of things. And so that's our goal. Ordinary to exceptional. We want to be exceptional. And we think the number 2 spot is not as exceptional as number 1. We're competitive. We love that spirit. So while you take a company like CertaPro Painters and they would be the number 1, we think we've got an awesome brand and a unique offering. And we think we can be number 1 at some point by working harder, working smarter, finding amazing franchise owners. The house detailing business, we're actually picking up momentum there really, really quickly. And with the addition of Christmas lights, we believe that we will be the largest in that space even quicker than the painting space.
That's a big one. I mean, I just bought Christmas lights for my house this year, and it was embarrassing how much I paid for that. So that'll be a big ticket for the franchisees. That's super helpful for that revenue when you're not washing windows in the wintertime necessarily.
And even with the Christmas lights, it's a perfect complement to an existing business where you've got ladders, you're washing windows. Why not during the slow season put up Christmas lights? And what's cool about that business, again, it's a subscription model. The first year that somebody uses us, we do custom lights and we trim them perfectly off these strands, whatever lights they want. They own those lights. We store those lights and we put them up again year after year after year. So it becomes, who wants to get up on ladders? I'm almost 50 years old. My wife couldn't pay me to get up on a ladder and get up on a roof. It's crazy. It's dangerous, right? I'd rather have our teams who are safe and secure and know what they're doing and a lot younger than me doing that kind of gig.
I always like it when there is a brand that has a group of franchisees in it or franchise partners like you have, and they diversify within the system because they know what they're going to get. It's easier to they know the support structure, they know what's going to happen, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
trust in the home office. How have you seen your franchise owners expand or diversify from within? Is there a lot of them that are doing that? And what kind of advice would you have to a franchisee that comes to you and says, "Hey, Brian, I want to diversify," and what would you tell them?
Yeah. So my advice is diversify when you're ready. When you've got a profitable, healthy business with a great culture and you're ready to take on a second franchise, do it. But we also try and get people to stay to, grow where you're planted. Don't go start a 1-800 Got Junk franchise, then a Wow One Day Painting, then a Shack Shine. Just do one. Do what you do well and do what Paul Guy did in Toronto, where he started to buy New York,
Hmm.
Nashville, Charlotte. He's all over the place, but he's focused and it's really, really powerful stuff. So it's grow where you're planted, pick one niche that you want to chase and do it really, really well.
What have franchisees taught you along the way? What are some of the things that you've learned from franchisees, whether it's talking to the top performers or maybe some underperformers,
Mhm.
but that they've fundamentally changed some things in the business or a way of thinking or the way that you've done things?
hmm I think our franchise partners have taught me that, you can have a ton of fun working with great people. This business has become way more than just money. This is building meaning, taking care of customers, watching some of our top franchise partners have really empowered the people that they have on their teams where they've become owners. So Tom Ritma, one of the early day franchise partners in San Francisco, has taken a whole ton of his people and made them owners in franchises across the country,
Hmm.
and that's exciting. So they've taught me that the power of entrepreneurship and in believing in a vision and building something awesome together. I think they've also taught us that it used to be, we talked about this earlier, you and I, Eric, that the letting the ego go and not being the smartest person in the room, otherwise you're in the wrong room.
Hmm.
But they've taught us that there's things that we do that could be improved, and they're constantly giving us better ideas. We have a franchise advisory council that will push back on us and say, hey, here's a better way. We want you to listen. It's important that you're open to commercial business and how we might grow that for 1-800 Got Junk. So there's been plenty of ideas of things that they've generated that have paid dividends for everybody.
Did that relationship have to get cultivated over time? Because initially, when franchisees come in, there's a like a growth that they have. They're really excited, and they get really disappointed, and this is typical,
hmm
right? And then
hmm
you finally get to the end where it's the we stage, and everybody's
hmm
everybody's happy, and they respect each other. And I know younger brands that are creating advisory councils before they need to, before there's a real need for it, before something's going
hmm
wrong in the brand,
hmm
so they're getting ahead of it. So they are getting advice like that. And what I've been hearing, the brands that are doing that are getting really good feedback from their franchisees. And it's not nearly as bad as the franchisor think it might be. It's really
hmm
helpful. And their asks are not that big of a deal. So was that something that you created early on and really kind of push for to get that advisory council so you can get that
hmm
relationship developed?
Yeah, we've created it earlier on, and we even have working groups throughout the different brands where if we're building out some new software for booking and dispatch and we need some support, we will turn to our franchise owners. So the people that you say as franchisors who are being proactive and doing this earlier, smart. It's the best thing you can do, because why not listen to your smart people? You've got these amazing franchise owners who are on the ground, who are plugged in. Why not ask for their input and idea? When change happens, change can be hard, but if you've got people that have been a part of creating that change as a working group or a franchise advisory council, it's going to smooth it over for everybody. Everyone will be feeling like, I was a part of creating this. And that's the ultimate teamwork. I'll say one more thing, that we refer to our franchise owners as franchise partners. We are partners. We depend on them to succeed. They depend on us to succeed. We are not successful without each other. We need each other. And so I think it's important to know that, so that when we give feedback to each other from different perspectives, we're able to listen and figure out how we work together.
How else would you describe that relationship? Because I like it when they're called franchise partners and it's not just words, but that actually means something. And I've been
hmm
trying to come up with some words to describe a franchise partner, franchisor relationship. Have you given that much thought beyond the franchise partner and truly seeing them as partners, like a different analogy or anything like that? Have you ever given that any thought?
Yeah, we have. I mean, they're all very different and unique across brands, but I think something we focused on doing is treating people like friends.
Mm-hmm.
Do they trust us? Do we trust them? Do we work together? Do we have each other's backs? Our values are as O2E is piped: passion, integrity, professionalism, and empathy. And the empathy, to touch on, is very important. That's putting ourselves in our franchise partner's shoes and saying, you know what? We feel for you. We know you're going through a hard time. You're not profitable yet. You're growing. Hey, we might have made a mistake and we've got to take ownership for. So I think that having that empathy and showing the love for your people, treating them like friends, that's been a huge, huge thing for us. So rather than give them a title, yes, they're franchise partners, but they're also friends.
Brian, like franchisor actually making a mistake, it's unheard of. It's really unheard. We as
Yeah.
franchisees, we all know it. We see it. Franchisors don't like to admit to mistakes very often because
Mm,
it can impact the system and it can have a negative impact on people that are trying to do some of the basic stuff right. But do you have
hmm
any examples of that, whether it's personal or you just see it in franchising in general, like when a franchisor admits to making some mistakes and the
hmm
franchisor is open about that and there's growth
hmm
that happens from it?
hmm Yeah. So I wrote a whole book on failure and on making mistakes, and it's called WTF,
What?
which actually stands for willing to fail. And we make a lot of mistakes, but you know what? We really work hard to not repeat them. We work hard to take ownership of them. I'll give you a recent one. We were in the moving business for 8 years. We had a business called You Move Me, and the business still exists today. However, we don't own it. We sold it to one of our shareholders. There were 5 of us. We couldn't agree on the direction of the business. It was not a happy business from the perspective of how customers feel. When you shine someone's shack, there's a tongue twister for you. At the end of that job, they're like, wow, I can see through my windows. Or you paint
Hmm.
someone's home, they're like, look at the walls, this has transformed my home. Or you haul away the junk, there's a sense of relief. With moving, and our mistake for not seeing that it was a happy business, people are like, okay, great, you guys moved my boxes, but now what? I'm stressed, I've got to unpack, I've lost stuff, I broke stuff, maybe you broke stuff. And so as a franchisor, we had to admit to our whole O2E Brands family and the owners that invested in us that we made a mistake and we're selling the business and we can't make it work.
Hmm.
So that was a tough one. That was a hard few months in terms of a transition out of O2E Brands, but you got to take these punches on the chin and just own up to them and say, hey, I'm sorry. And here's what we learned. And here's what we're going to do differently next time.
Man, I've learned some big lessons the last couple of years and taken it on the chin. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, how did I miss this? I've done this so many times. How did I miss this? And there's just little subtleties like what you just mentioned, like how the customers feel. I got into a business where I didn't realize how difficult it would be for the customers to make a lifestyle change in the weight business, losing weight. Like it all sounds good, but when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to actually making that decision, that's a hard thing for them to do. They don't go into that. It's not a feel good thing as they're doing it. They all want the result,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't want to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And I'm in the fitness business where someone comes out of a class, they feel great, the endorphins, and they're ready, and it's a feel good thing. But like you said, in the weight loss business, it is not, and it's just a different business, and that's okay. But it is not easy from like what you just mentioned. That the customer getting a customer actually do what they're supposed to do to get to that point where they actually do feel good at the very end of it is not easy. And I underestimated the challenge in that. And,
Mm-hmm.
but we're human, right? And I've owned up to it. I did not see that.
Mm-hmm. But you've captured some learning, right? You were willing to fail. You might have had a mini failure and you learned from it. And then you say, okay, how does this make the business better? And my whole 30-year story to date, when I look at everything that was put in that book, WTF, the title jumped out at us, my co-author, Roy Williams, and I, because it was, look at mistake, learning, mistake, learning, mistake, learning. And we kept on growing as a result of
Mm-hmm.
all the mistakes we made and how we reacted. So, yeah, the learning's an important part. And I think that a lot of leaders don't want to admit their mistakes, but that's how we all grow.
In your book, Willing to Fail, you talk about finding gratitude in the challenging times. And it's
Mm-hmm.
probably, it's not easy to find, to even be have the awareness to look for gratitude, much less like find it and vocalize it in the challenging times. How do you do it?
I just think about it. I just sit there and go, okay, what am I grateful for today? Or when something challenging happens in life or in business, how do you find a moment to sort of step out of the anger or the hurt or the disappointment and say, what am I grateful for? So, here's a real life example. My oldest daughter is a ski racer. She was having an amazing season, just lighting it up, loving life. And yesterday she had an accident in training and broke her tibia. She's got a cast up to her hip. She's disappointed she can't race for the rest of the season. One of the things I tried to do before bed last night is just think of what I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it could have been worse. And, the coaches even told me, they said, I know this sounds strange. They came to visit us in hospital and they said, I know this sounds strange, but those who get injured become better athletes than those who don't because they're more determined. They work through the down periods of having an injury. They decide if they really want the competition and the winning. And, it's a different game. So
Yeah.
I think I'm grateful for that visit in the hospital, and I'm grateful for the learning and reflection. And so, I hope my daughter's inspired to feel the same and do the same. And we try and at home practice gratitude, because you can't, when you make a mistake, you shut down a business like You
Yep.
Move Me. I can still sit there and make a whole list of things I'm grateful
Yep.
for. And I learned.
Yeah. My wife and I do that often, especially with our kids. And my wife, we were skiing in Breckenridge over Thanksgiving and the first trip out in the year. And she tore her ACL and MCL. ACL is bad
Ouch.
enough, but MCL is a whole nother level. So she's upstairs right now, 6 weeks without weight on the thing. But
Yeah.
I had a Navy SEAL on the podcast and we were talking about that exact same thing. And he had 40 surgeries, but he said, Eric, that's nothing. I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, I know someone that had about 200 surgeries. There's always somebody that has it worse. But, I'm stronger because of the things that I've gone through. I know that you are. I know that we're coming up against our time today. One of the things that I want to start asking guests more and more is around impact, because especially in like non-sexy businesses like junk removal, I've been a part of different businesses that aren't sexy, but I've seen impact happen, whether it's with employees or different things. And I think it's really interesting when business owners or founders find impact in their daily life in the business that they normally would never have known. So do you have any stories? Do you have anything around impact that you've discovered in these home service based unsexy businesses?
I just think the impact of changing lives. So I didn't come up with that as a brandable chunk, changing lives. Our franchise partners will tell us over and over and over, Brian or team, you've changed my life. And I'll say, I haven't changed your life. You've changed your own life. So you take someone like Paul Guy, who starts in Toronto, who has one truck, drives it from Vancouver. Our head office becomes the first franchise partner and drives it across the country to Toronto to start the business, and does $1 million in revenue in his first full calendar year, builds a $16 million empire, and then all his other brands. He borrowed $25,000 from his brother as a line of credit. He didn't have a penny to his name. His life has changed. He's got 4 lovely kids and a wife, and he's built this awesome, special life with freedom, the finances, and so on. He believes his life has changed because of the opportunity that he took. And he's right. It wasn't us changing the life of Paul Guy. So if I look at that, I go, that's impact. Or you can take someone on a smaller scale who started later than Paul Guy, who was working in the trucks, a guy, Josh Heron in Kansas City. And Josh gets out there, works in the trucks, ends up buying into the franchise, and today owns franchises also across the country. And I think that they've got a $30 million empire today. He and I did a podcast together about his story. But here's somebody that just never really knew that he had the power in him to really build a business. He's now bringing other entrepreneurs into his world. And I remember when he was last up here, Josh sent me a text after saying, hey, great visit with you, Brian. Thank you again. This has changed my life. So to me, that's the ultimate testimonial. If someone can say you've changed their lives, and ultimately you and I know, especially from the fitness world, they've changed their own life. That's the ultimate sort of sign of impact.
Any last thoughts that you want to leave the audience with today?
I think we've covered it all. You've made this fun and entertaining for me, and I love reflecting. But what drives me more, aside from my own family, is this business family of inspiring entrepreneurship, of bringing people in who have always had the American dream. They might not have ever run a business, but once they come into the family and they have our O2E platform and they follow the recipe and have success, it is the most awesome thing in the world.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.